Welcome. I'm your host, Jesse Gillis. This is the show, Now is the Time to Talk. Tonight's guest for the first episode is Tom Mannion, representative by Hillsborough District.
District 1.
Okay.
Hello.
Have a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, man. This is fantastic. Thanks for having me.
So we met a few...
3 weeks ago, something?
Something like that,
Yeah.
and met over Defend the Guard?
Absolutely, yeah.
Veterans thing, there was other subjects, but Defend the Guard.
Yeah.
And new bill to me, I came across it maybe a year ago, and quite exciting because it's back in the state representatives.
Yep. Back in the House.
Back in the House. So I've been keeping up to date. I've been seeing the other states, but would you care to share a little bit about who you are first?
Oh, yeah. So, I'm a software engineer by trade, but before I did all that, I was a Marine Corps infantry veteran. I went to Iraq twice, deployed in 05 and again in 07. Got out of there, went to school. Basically, everything I experienced there has kind of crafted my political opinions. I didn't quite understand how I ended up in Iraq in the first place. Naive high schooler, right? During my sophomore year, 9/11 happened. So I'm like, I want to go after these guys that did this, those responsible.
Yeah.
And so, very, very early on, I was in the delayed entry program for a year and a half or something. But I reached out, I found the Marine Corps at an air show or something. It was Westover Air Force Base or something. I did a pull-up challenge, and oh, you'd be really good. And so they got my number, and I was like, this is it. This is where the path I want to go on. I was like, let's go get these guys, like Osama bin Laden and all those responsible. Fast forward, I'm in boot camp in 2004. I'm in boot camp, and they're talking about we're in Iraq at this point. We're already there for a year, and I'm like, they kept saying we'll be out of that soon. It'll be like Desert Storm. It'll be over, and we're gonna get Saddam Hussein, whatever. I was like, I don't know. Sure, Saddam Hussein, weapons of mass destruction, something to do with Al Qaeda. I don't know. I'm a naive high schooler. Go there and. The experiences with boots on the ground, I did a lot of door kicking. We did hit by VBIEDs, sniper shots, mortars, for especially my first deployment. There was lots of mortars. My first deployment took us real close to the Syrian border. I was right on the edge of the Syrian border where the Euphrates meets it. There's an entire area called Al-Qaim. We operated out of there, and we cleared all of that city. It was post-Fallujah, post-Ramadi, and then the next step was right against the Syrian border because they want to put a blockade there to stop people the insurgents from across that border. So that was me in 05. Saw all kinds of stuff there. Never really understood why we were there. I know that the nuclear biological chemical dudes were with us because they were still looking for the weapons of mass destruction. We went to I think it was a phosphorus plant in that region, and I asked the guys do you guys find anything any of these weapons of mass destruction? The guy laughed at me. He's like, we're not going to find any weapons of mass destruction. They knew it was a lie back then. They already were fully aware that we were lied our way into this war, and that was kind of an eye-opening thing for me. That guy thought it was a joke. And I'm like, okay. It's I'm naive. I'm a dumb 19-year-old kid. And then my second deployment was a lot easier. We did a lot more convoy type stuff. We were doing we were between Fallujah and Ramadi in this area to Al-Taqadim. And we were just kind of hanging out and trying to do the transition to the Iraqi army, Iraqi police. So we did a lot of hanging around in fobs and stuff like that. And I was just driving around in Humvees a lot more. Didn't take as much contact, fortunately. And then after that, I got out, and I really just started looking into how did I end up in Iraq? How did this happen? And then I just started I ran into Congressman Ron Paul was a big anti-war guy at the time, and he was the guy that was breaking from his own party at the time when everyone was just saying the war in Iraq needs to keep going. I think it was John McCain was running for president at the time, and he was just doubling down. We need to go from Iraq into Iran, and wait, what does any of this have to do with 9/11, right? And they're just lying. Lies and lies from these people, and that really got me engaged in politics and foreign policy. And I started reading all about the history of that region. It's how the U.S. picked sides in all these fights. At one point Saddam Hussein was our friend, and it's in Afghanistan, Al Qaeda and the Taliban were our friend again when we were basically supplying them with arms against the Russians. And it's just these kind of things, it focused me into this hardcore anti-war guy now, right? And fast forward to I finally am getting actually activated in politics, and I just start running for the House here in New Hampshire. This is
What was
back.
the year?
This was 2022 was the year my first election. I had moved to New Hampshire in 2020. Like I got out of Massachusetts, moved up here in the fall of 2020. So the earliest I could run was 2022, and I did it. So like I was just like, I'm doing this. I want to be up in the legislature. And honestly, like you said, like Defend the Guard was not even on my in my periphery whatsoever. I was just going to get up here and like do stuff about like COVID response and all that, and so that's what I wanted to really do. But then I was just at like a briefing for like it was like we do like these forums where like a bunch of legislators will get together, and then different people who have different ideas will come in and present bill ideas. Like, here's this thing that I was thinking about, or here's this thing that's happening in other states. Would you guys think of co-sponsoring this? And I ran into my buddy Derek Prue, who's like he's with Bring Our Troops Home in New Hampshire, and he's like, here's this thing that we're going to try stopping the war machine from the perspective of states' rights. And I was like, tell me everything. Tell me everything about this. So I want to know about it. And he's like, oh, we already have like vets signed on, like John Patuchik and like Michael Granger and these other guys are vets that are up at the State House. And it's like, we'd be happy to put you as a co-sponsor. Like, you can't be a prime. We don't know if you're crazy yet. Like, because a lot of people, like the way that the New Hampshire State House works is like sometimes crazy people can get in there because it's so accessible. And they want to make sure that it's like, well, let's wait. We're going to give it to somebody who's been there for like, several terms. John Patuchik, hardcore veteran guy. He's was served Vietnam and all that. And it's like, we'll let him be the prime this time through. And he did a fantastic job. And I was a co-sponsor, and I was kind of like just watching how things were happening. And then I was watching hearings in different states, like how, like, it ends up being, it's like these boots on the ground guys, dudes that kick the doors in, like the lower enlisted guys that did their one term or their one enlistment get out are like the prime sponsors of these things, and the people who show up to testify in support of it. And the guys on the other side are always like the colonels or some Air Force guy, like some pilot, or in every other case, it's the adjutant general, like either a 1 or 2 star general rolls in, and they're like, the money, it's like, if we do this, like, we're going to lose federal funding for whatever. And like, if you listen to different states, it's almost like they have a script. Like, I've been listening this week, like they have it was like North Dakota had it.
North Dakota, I just started listening to South Dakota's.
Yes, yep, and they did the same thing. And
it's the same.
It's the same script, almost like it comes from the central location, like the Department of Defense.
So Dan McKnight was just reviewing one of them.
Yep.
And he was saying it's almost as if NGB, National Guard Bureau, had given them the script to read.
Yep.
As a jobs program, weapons manufacturing, lobbying, think tanks, U.S. foreign, you call it empire. But it's the same answer. It's the federal government will take this money away, that will take the assets away, and you'll be left without these things to do your state thing. And it's like, do you really have a choice? You feel like you're forced to accept this and participate in these, what are foreign wars?
Forever. Wars of choice, forever wars that have been going on for 25 years now.
May I go back?
Yeah.
The 9/11, where were you?
I was in high school, Westfield, Massachusetts. I was when the first tower was hit, I was in an architecture class.
Okay. I was in 8th grade math.
Oh, wow.
And so 2003, the invasion, I was a sophomore. And I remember shock and awe was the history teacher was teaching what was going on. But as I go back, 2002, that's when it starts up all the propaganda, the lies, what they say,
UN Security Council.
What they say is faulty intelligence.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah, they try to cover it now. They're like, there was mistakes, there was misinterpreted images and things like that. It was there's no way.
And so you go, and so we invade March 20th. It's over within weeks. And by May, Paul Bremer, the coalition governor, had disbanded the Ba'ath Party, 45,000 people unemployed in political office, and then the army was disbanded a couple weeks after.
Dismantled the entire Republican National Guard.
450,000 people, men who know how to be violent, who have different capabilities, influence, power, but the means who just got let go. And now you go from what was a short war against a crippled state to a occupation. How do you describe what?
I mean, at that point, it's to me when I joined the Marine Corps, the reason I did it is because I wanted to be like the first to fight. I wanted to be a door kicker. I wanted to storm things. I wanted to go in guns blazing. By the time even I got there, the mission had changed to more of like we were sort of like police. And like the rules of engagement were constantly being constrained on us. Like what was it? Escalation of force was the thing that they kept changing the rules on. So what they used to do, it's like if you're driving in a Humvee, and like one of the choice attacks that they did at the time was the suicide VBIEDs, the vehicle-borne IEDs, where they would just drive cars into our convoy and the cars would explode.
Yeah.
And like the suicide, the guy behind the wheel already knew he was dead. They usually had some kind of, they either like were threatening his family or they promised to pay his family off.
This is something important. John Kiriakou would talk about when he was first, I forget where he was station chief in charge of it, and he would talk about the guys, they would go and they would go to the house to capture these individuals, whether it was Al-Qaeda or Taliban or some other terrorist group.
In our case, like we had guys coming from as far away as like Somalia. Some guys were coming down from Chechnya just to shoot at Americans.
And the things I've heard was that they were poor, they didn't know the Quran, and whether or not their family was held hostage, but they had no means. Their countries were being destroyed. They were destabilized. They had no economic means. So you're capturing people that are illiterate when it comes to this religious aspect that's in our media at home was the main thing that drove them.
Yep, that's what they kept saying.
And so you find these people and they're suicide bombers. They'll find something in the afterlife, but you're picking on people without means.
Yep.
And they're uneducated as far as I'm going to say that as far as the Quran goes. And so
that wasn't their motivation. It was because they were starved. They were, like you said, like pressure on the family, things like that. That's what we found as well.
Yeah.
Like they like to say it was like a religious war. It's like they were all jihadis and like that's their whole thing. It's like that's not necessarily the case. It's not like not the case in some instances, but in like a lot of these cases, it was the financial leverage over the family or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I was describing, so it's like as the Marine Corps, like I wanted to go in and kick doors down. I wanted to go find the guys responsible for 9/11, and we ended up just being police. And like, so in like very early on, like after we did our first clearing op, it was like a smaller town of, I think it was Saddah was the name of it. I might be saying that wrong, but it's like it's in the Al-Qaim region, a small town. And in September, like we're just doing like these foot patrols, and we thought that we were making progress in the town and like that people were coming to our side. And there was actually, so we were coming around the bend of this one road and it was off. Like it's one of those things, like they always tell the story, like everybody who tells this same story knows that it's like the people in the town know something's up. It's like we were taking a right onto one of the alternate supply routes, like one of the main roads off of some side road, and the children were trying to tell us something that we didn't understand at the time. Like they were like going like this, and we're like, what? Like the kids are acting weird. Okay. They know something's up. And we round the bend and like we go down through a wadi and then up on the main supply route, and then like suicide VBID comes out, hits our foot patrol. Our point man blasts the dude like right in the face. Like thank God, because like the vehicle otherwise would have made it deeper into the column, and the car just explodes. Like it was like definitely like rigged, some kind of like dummy switch, like dead man switch, like however they had it set up, and like the car just explodes, and it's like everyone in the column in front of me is wounded. Every single, like I don't know, like miraculous religion, whatever you want to call it. Like I was the first guy, and everybody behind me was okay, but it's like every single person in the column in front of me is like wounded, and it's like that kind of thing, just like. Stays with you forever, and it's just like I still have survivor's guilt. Like it's not as bad now as it was like when I came home and saw like our point man's like wife and like newborn kid and stuff like that. Like so that kind of stuff rocks you, and like and the really hard to like cope with thing is like what was it for? Like, what were we doing there? Like, what was that for? Like, there's like a line, I think it's like Black Hawk Down, where it's like, when you're in the mix, you're there for the guys next to you. But then from the 1,000-foot level, like, I want to say, like, where was Congress? Like, where was any of these people looking out for us that are supposed to be, like, looking out for the troops and stuff like that? Like, that's like...
When I hear, so in this book, Bakovic put together Passive Dissent, soldiers speaking out against misguided wars. The ones in here that went to West Point that were attending during the early phase of Iraq, they were told to, you keep your head down, you do your duty, you fulfill your honor, you do your job well, you serve your country. Don't question, let the thinking happen at the big wigs up top. But that's where, say, the Defend the Guard comes in as far as they're not doing their job, and there might be reasons why they're not doing their job.
Ulterior motives. Like, I'm sure there's some of those neocon types that genuinely, for some reason, think that what they're doing is the right thing. But I honestly, I don't know. I feel like when you see that some of these guys are saying that, oh, we need to defend America in Iraq somehow,
Yeah.
they are also just so happen to be their biggest donors are like Raytheon, BAE,
Yeah.
these people that are profiting off of our blood, right? Like Halliburton, et cetera, like all of those organizations. And that part's upsetting because it's like, so these congressmen are supposed to be the ones voting, to, like putting their name on the thing, saying like, yeah, this is a righteous war. This is something that like we think that we should be sending our blood and losing blood and treasure in the Middle East for the safety of the country. But that's all just propaganda, chest beating nonsense. Like some of this crap is just like, if you look at it now, it's like, to me, it's all just them trying to bully Iran, bully Russia, or like have forces in the region as like, oh, well, we have all these guys here. Like, what are you going to do? Like, it's almost like a apocalyptic game of chicken with these like nuclear powers. And we're the people that are on the front lines that are potentially catching the flag, literally catching the flag. And, it's rough.
So Dennis Fritz, I don't know if I mentioned Deadly Betrayal.
I think we did mention this.
Band Chief Master Sergeant. I was in the Air National Guard, 13 years, 10 years in Connecticut, 3 years in New Hampshire here at Pease. But I get out, I wasn't going to re-enlist again. It weighs on me that I did get back in because my feeling against going in was, at the time, COVID, getting laid off, going to school. I'm like, now I have debt. I'm going to have to move somewhere. I have no chance of a job.
Yep.
But I know Pease, and I'm living in Portsmouth, so I get back in. I'm now out, and I feel better about it. But so Dennis Fritz, Command Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force during that time, had boiled it down. He was someone in charge of declassifying the intelligence from Iraq, from Afghanistan, and he boiled it down to 3 main reasons why we invaded Iraq. That was, 1, there was American credibility. That goes back to Rumsfeld, Undersecretary under Nixon.
Yep.
Right, that's your neocon, but back then I don't remember what he called himself. There was taking care of state sponsors of terrorism of Hezbollah and Hamas to help out Israel, because you have the Israeli lobby, you have people that believe Israel is the United States, they're two tied together.
Yep.
And the other one was spreading democracy or power, reigning power in the Middle East. That's just like when, well, let's say we were so happy when Iran was toppled in '79, the Iranian Revolution, because there was a real chance that the communist and socialist parties might actually gain control. We would rather see a fundamentalist regime get there so they won't align with the Soviets, and Soviets when you have access to Iranian oil. But he had talked about those, and those are the 3 reasons he gave. Someone who, Colonel Larry Wilkerson, Undersecretary of State Colin Powell, had written the intro to this. This is a well-respected man. I do think he left out one thing about the access to oil, but Gary Vogler just came out with a book on that. Larry Wilkerson had changed his mind. Gary Vogler was somebody in charge of the oil pipelines going in and out of Iraq. But switching to Defend the Guard.
Yes.
What is it?
Yep, so we'll get right to the subject. So the idea behind Defend the Guard is that we will not deploy the New Hampshire National Guard, and this is filed in more than just New Hampshire, but we will not send our National Guard units to a combat zone without a formal declaration of war from Congress, which, if you know a little bit of history, we have not formally declared war via Congress since 1942, World War II. Everything after that has either been some kind of like UN resolution where we went in as like Korea, where we went in there, or like Vietnam was like a police action or whatever the hell they called it at the time, like Gulf of Tonkin resolution, where just like allowed, based on a lie, another one based on a lie, or at bare minimum greatly exaggerated, the Gulf of Tonkin incident. And it's like that cost hundreds of thousands of lives, like insane amounts, and it sparked the draft. Has caused a giant rift in the American populace, like over a lie. Once again, a lie. And then everything since Vietnam has been under this. It's the War Powers Act was passed right after that, and they said it was like a way to like rein in the too much power they gave the executive with the Gulf of Tonkin resolution. But in practical application, it's still unlimited war-making power, especially with the 2001 post 9/11 AUMF. It has no targets besides like nebulous words like those responsible for 9/11
Right.
and nations that harbor them.
Right.
It's
that was
extremely
the
broad.
AMF authorized use of military force 2001 to go after the people responsible for 9/11.
Yep.
And we did make one for Iraq, but
Yeah, 2002.
But 2001 has been used to go over what 22 countries.
Yes.
Now?
Yep.
Still in play.
Yep.
It was attempts to repeal it happen every year. It gets. How would you describe what happens to it every year?
What's bizarre is it'll pass. Sometimes it'll pass one body, right? It'll come out of the Senate, like majority, like 52%, 52 out of 100. It'll come out of there, then the House will sit on it and kill it. And one way or the other, they're not happy with what the other chamber writes. Whether it's sometimes they just scope it down, like they don't do a full repeal. They try to amend it down so it's like more specific about regions or whatever, and then no one's ever completely happy with it. It's almost like they want to pay lip service, especially like those that harped on it, like in the early 2000s, like
Barbara Lee.
Yes. Yep. And they'll be like, oh, well, here's the thing. We ran entire campaigns against the Iraq War or against the 2001 AUMF. So we're going to pay some lip service and try to get this thing repealed. And then it just dies every single time.
That's what it seems like. They pretend to not be able to come to an agreement, and then it just continues
Yep.
because it's profitable for everybody.
Absolutely. And the disturbing part about the 2001 AUMF in particular is how it's been used to excuse what's going on in Syria right now. For a while when we were fighting ISIS, so let's back up a bit. I think it was 2013. They tried to pass. Obama tried to pass an AUMF specifically for intervention in Syria, and it failed.
Yeah.
They did the whip sheet in the Senate, and they didn't have the votes. It never passed. So what they did, my understanding, is that they got a bunch of JAG officers together, and they were able to be. By the time this happened, ISIS was already in full swing. So they end up using the JAG officers. Were like, well, ISIS is in Iraq, so we can still use the 2002 Iraq AUMF for anything against ISIS. But then once ISIS was dealt with, that didn't really make any sense anymore, because then we were wholly focused on basically regime change against the Assad regime in Syria, where we're training offshoots of Al-Qaeda. Like it's HTS, and the guy that is now in charge of Syria, that they deposed Assad and they installed this guy, Mohammed al-Jalani. This guy is Al-Qaeda. Yes. He was detained by American troops in Iraq at the same time I was there.
Yeah.
He was arrested, detained because he was part of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. And then he went, eventually broke off from there. He went to go form, I think it was a Al Nusra Front. For a little while, he was with ISIS, and then he thought they were too extreme, but he just went and joined a different jihadi group. Yeah. And it's just all offshoots of Al-Qaeda. And now our media and our intelligence agencies are trying to sweep that crap under the rug. And the guy even rebranded himself. He changed his name. Yeah. And the U.S., now that this guy took over, it was mid-December, they removed the $10 million bounty that they had on his head.
Did he not? Yeah, so the $10 million bounty is just wiped. It's gone now.
Gone.
He used to have it there.
Yeah, vaporized.
He spent a decade in a black site?
Yeah, I think
military
something
prison?
like that. Yeah.
He was in our cells. He was a part of this. He may actually have American blood on his hands.
Undoubtedly, yeah.
Undoubtedly. I have a friend who lost someone I think it was in Fallujah, who has since that time has been looking at this and can't believe that Al-Jalani is being propped up by our government, who may actually have something to do with the death of his cousin.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it at all. And this is that bipolar, I call it bipolar foreign policy of the United States. And it's the same thing happened in Libya, where we didn't like Gaddafi, so the CIA went in there and they worked with extremist groups, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and stuff like that to help overthrow Gaddafi in Libya. And they justify all of this stuff. Anytime we put boots on the ground in any of these countries or drop bombs in any of these countries, they use that 2001 AUMF, which is specifically against those responsible for 9/11, which is Al-Qaeda. So if we are using the 2001 AUMF as justification for all these engagements, military blunders, how? We are working against our own AUMF. We should be drone striking the Pentagon, right? Because they're harboring and arming and protecting Al-Qaeda.
Right.
If we're going to work it through its logical conclusion, that's what we should be doing. And so this goes all the way back to Defend the Guard, where we at the state level do not agree that these AUMFs are justifiable. They're not valid declarations of war. It is not a valid act of Congress.
It's unconstitutional.
It is unconstitutional, and that's been the argument since day one with this bill.
So, declaration of war in our Constitution that the executive branch is the commander-in-chief, but it has to go to Congress to get a declaration. War it's not, I don't think, specifically defined, but it is an act of aggression against another state where you are taking our troops and doing it there.
And the idea here is they specifically, the founders, when they gave that power to declare war, they gave it to Congress on purpose because they had witnessed how the kingdoms of Europe, how the kings would just they were, the commander-in-chief, and they were the ones doing the war declaration.
Right.
And they would just take their armies and they would bankrupt their nations and send so many of their youth home in boxes for nothing, like wars of occupation, forever occupation, and things like that. And they witnessed the failure of this in Europe, and they're like, we need to put the power to declare war with the people's body, which was the House, or the House and the Senate, like the Congress.
So you have a legislative body that's entirely in cahoots and say, we give an authorization of use of force to President Bush. We just do what we don't actually have the legality to, but nobody's really going to push back on this because Barbara Lee is the one person who voted against it, I believe, in both houses.
Yep. And at the time, they always get you with it's exigent circumstances. We got to do it right now, and
absolutely right now.
And that's how they always do this, and they just scare everybody into compliance.
And the opponents of your bill say that it's legal. Well, yeah, but it's still unconstitutional. There are lots of things they pass in law that are unconstitutional. In fact, I think the enemies in sedition, or is it enemies in sedition thing that impeached the that put Japanese internment camps in World War II was under an act that was unconstitutional. Still law, but unconstitutional.
All it takes, what you need is an aggrieved party, and then they can challenge it and stuff like that. Now, we actually are interposing ourselves. As Daniel Webster has a quote about this, where he says that the role of the states is to interpose between their militia and an overzealous federal government. They may exploit them. And this is exactly what Daniel Webster was talking about, where they just run roughshod over the states, and they're like, well, we nationalized all of these. These things are all part of some bigger united force that all belong technically to the federal government because we pay for their bases. We pay for their refuelers and their HIMARS batteries. And that's the arguments they keep saying in New Hampshire. And it's like, and because of that, you are not allowed to question what we do.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of legal technicalities in here. I don't know how deep you want to go into how they lie and they twist the interpretations of Title 10 and Title 32 deployments.
And this is important because it's Title 10 combat overseas for what is otherwise a war that's unofficially declared. It prevents National Guard. Well, what happens? It passes, let's say it passes House and Senate. The governor has the right to...
The governor is obligated to.
Yes.
It says that the governor may not without a formal declaration.
And he's going to have a hard time, and so is the Attorney General is going to have a hard time if they go against what's in the law of the state of New Hampshire, then they are going to have to explain themselves why they didn't uphold this.
Exactly. It could be grounds for impeachment, et cetera.
Could be grounds for impeachment.
Right.
We're not the only state.
We're not the only state pushing it. Right now, it's already passed. So what do we have? We have it's come out of the South Dakota Senate. I think it was 3-1 out of their committee.
Yeah.
That passed out of there. They still have to pass the main bodies. So these committees, just like my committee just had, we do there's a smaller percentage of the entire body will meet. They'll hear testimony, and then they vote on a recommendation to the floor. Then that floor will, as a whole body, will make a vote on it. Right now, we're across the country. There's all kinds of hearings going on, and we have Wyoming did it. I think it was 9-0 out of their. I think it was their House. I want to say it was their House passed it out of their committee. 9-0, bipartisan, unanimous in favor. South Dakota passed it. I think it was 3-1. It may have still been bipartisan, not sure, out of committee. And then Virginia had a subcommittee, which is even a smaller subsection, but it was 5-0 out of their subcommittee, bipartisan.
That's a lot of tracking.
It is. It's a lot of tracking, right? But these are the steps of the process. And the upside is this progress is a lot better than last year, where we only had there was one committee that didn't go to the floor, but there was only 3 bodies that passed it. I think it was the Montana Senate, the Arizona Senate, and the New Hampshire House were the only 3 bodies in the entire country that passed it. And there was one additional committee recommended it, and then it never got a floor vote.
Yeah.
I think it might have been Arizona, actually. It was Arizona because Wendy Thomas it was the Arizona Senate. I think, passed it. And that was the second body. It was Arizona Senate passed it, and then the Arizona Speaker of the House has what they call a pocket veto, where any legislation that comes across from another chamber or gets introduced into their chamber, they can just kind of never assign it to a committee, and then it just dies on the vine. We don't have that, thankfully, in New Hampshire.
Okay.
Every bill gets a hearing.
That is, okay, that's all beyond me. I'm still new to
No, it's all good. It's all
politics.
good. I'm just trying to explain the process.
Yeah.
Different states have different processes. Pocket veto is one of those things that it's just like it gives too much power to like either the president of the Senate or the Speaker of the House and all these various bodies where they could just take a bill and kill it all by themselves. One man just kills bills like this, like defend the guard, stuff they don't want to see hit the floor, and it's frustrating. But New Hampshire thankfully doesn't have that problem.
Good. So let's say we get this passed, that gives the governor the option to fulfill his duties.
Yep.
Right, upholds New Hampshire law.
Yep. Her in this case.
Her in this case. So if it gets passed, yeah.
Yep.
And other states on board, maybe the threat of federal funding disappearing would go away because more and more states are having more and more states are passing this. Therefore, maybe Congress actually declares war. And is that a problem if Congress declares war?
No. Well, then it goes back to the default. Nothing changes.
And it's constitutional
Yes.
again. Whether it's a just war, it
Right.
is at least constitutional because Congress has now officially declared
Yep.
war. And that is what and I get to hear every now and then. I think the North Dakota Adjutant General had said, well, I tell every airman that joins that they swear an oath to the Constitution. And is he saying that? He's also saying that this is not okay because it's against the law. So you swear an oath to uphold the Constitution, the laws and orders of those above you, but they're not doing their part.
No.
And Congress isn't doing their part.
No.
And
Congress likes this. That's why I think they're not trying to repeal these AOMFs. They like that they're not on the hook for it. The president gets all the flack for anything bad happening with these wars. You're supposed to look at Congress because they're the ones who control the declaration. They can end it whenever they want.
They can.
But everybody just looks at the president. And we've had changing of the guard, which rightfully so, like George W. Bush got us into the quagmire of Iraq, and then the parties swapped and it went like heavy the other way, and then Barack Obama comes in, and then nothing really changed, honestly. Like we came out of Iraq, but for I think like 4 years tops, and then had to go back because of ISIS. And like the entire thing with ISIS is downstream of the damage we did in Iraq in the first place.
Right.
Like had we not eviscerated Iraq's ability to defend itself and then left a bunch of equipment with unqualified individuals, the Islamic State would not have gained a foothold in Iraq specifically.
Right.
Meanwhile, in Syria, we were training these moderate rebels that then went off to go join ISIS. So it's like those people went into Iraq, found a bunch of people that are pissed off about the United States and what we did to their country for the last 10 years with a bunch of equipment that we left for the Iraqi army. And now they have their own standing, super motivated, really angry group of jihadis just ready to fight to the death. Because some of them, like, they had nothing left to lose. Because like we killed about, there's lowball estimates, like 500,000 people. More realistic estimates, we probably killed 1 million people in Iraq. Like our actions there. And some of those people have nothing left to lose. The ones that have survived, they're willing to just join these crazy like ISIS type factions because they don't have any family left. They don't have a house left. Like what do they have going for them?
that's something I don't think people as far as know the numbers. I was familiar with 300,000 civilians. I don't know how many but you take in the sanctions up before then, after the first Iraq war, that Madeleine Albright famously in that 1996 interview said the price of potentially 500,000 dead kids, at least conservatively was 300,000 dead kids from our economic sanctions to punish them for their weapons of mass destruction, was worth the price because this hurt Saddam Hussein. This was a regime change under Clinton that carried forward. And the price of, well, we keep doing this. We were doing this in Syria. Economic sanctions.
Oh, absolutely,
And we're willing to hurt people with economic sanctions, embargoing their trade. We're doing it to Venezuela. We're doing it to many countries. All the countries we don't like that are evil, Iran, North Korea, all these ones that are evil and they're so oppressive, we're also making the daily lives of those people harder. And I think the goal, tell me what you think, I think the goal is that their lives are so bad that they're willing to overthrow their government, because their government, like every government, is abusing human rights violations, and maybe they'll overthrow them for us.
Yeah, that's exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head. Like I was going to finish your sentence, but that's exactly what I think that they're doing. They want it to happen in Iran so bad. Like when the Arab Spring was kicking off, you know, like CIA started Arab Spring. There was some small protests in Tehran, but they never really caught fire the way that they did in like all those other countries. Like Hosni Mubarak overthrown, and Syria started. It took 10 years, but that eventually got overthrown. Libya, like all these countries, that's all CIA started, and the entire thing was just all regime change to get rid of a bunch of people that didn't agree with our policies. And, you know, at the cost of what? Like a massive civil war, destabilization of those nations, and God knows, like some of the people that may get installed might be, in the case of Syria, Al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
Or in Libya, it's just anarchy in the form of where there's people like the literal slave trade in the streets and stuff like that. That country is not better off without Gaddafi.
They always say it's for humane reasons. It's democracy. It's to help out the people, but then they're abandoned. Those people are abandoned as soon as the war effort's over. And you talk about, I mean, wanting to help Ukraine, right? Wanting to help Ukraine to what end? Will you throw, as Anthony Blinken was there on his last last visit, wanting to lower the age of conscription down to 18, right? So throw every last Ukrainian to the front line. Waste them all. Because as it was put out by our legislature, or Lloyd Austin in one of his speeches, that this is the best, maybe he didn't put it that way, someone did put it that this is the best deal we can get because we're not losing any American troops. We are wasting Ukrainians who can just throw themselves to the front line. For the same thing that they talk about when people talk about history, the Red Army, the Soviets at the time, will say they'll just throw everything at the front line. Well, we'll have the Ukrainians just throw themselves into a meat grinder.
I want to say it was like Lindsey Graham that said, this is the best bang for our buck that we can get because we are draining the resources of Russia. And it's like, okay, so bang for your buck, you're forgetting all about those Ukrainian conscripts. And the Russian conscripts, like honestly, they haven't done anything wrong. It's Putin. Like, so both sides are just like conscripting men, like young 18-year-old. In the case of Ukraine, like their conscripts are older. From what I understand, like their conscription age is older. But like I think Russia's on the other side where they go younger, and then they're just like throwing these guys into a meat grinder where it's been like a stalemate, or the line moves like a mile here or there for what, 2 years now, 3 years? Like we're moving into year 3, I think.
It seems slow paced.
Yeah, and the lines aren't moving. Like whatever Russia took, Russia has. And, like I don't think they're going to give it up, and at what cost? Like you said, like. These poor conscripts' lives, it's like, oh, best bang for our buck. And it's like, okay, well, how much are each of those conscripts' lives worth? And then there's like the money laundering accusations where the money goes into Ukraine and then disappears. Like, oh, there's this like arms that we sent them that are showing up in Mexico.
So that's the thing.
Cartel.
Well, beforehand, I remember getting a briefing because I was supposed to help out with the Department of Corrections here because they were shorthanded. But the FBI member in charge of gangs in New Hampshire said, "I don't understand why we're giving money to the Azov battalion in Ukraine. They're number 2 in human trafficking in Europe. So the Ukraine went from one of the worst, least democratic places in Europe to the bastion of democracy. But when Russia invaded, 2014 civil war, we overthrow a president, we oust him. It's a soft coup. Yanukovych. Up to then, I think over 14,000 people have been killed in that civil war between the east and the west of Ukraine. And now they're all of a sudden, all the things about they have a neo-Nazi problem, the people were funding, like the Mujahideen when they're fighting the Soviets in Afghanistan. The ISIS were training, right? These moderate rebels that were training. There are always these people that are willing to use violence, enjoy using violence for their political aims. There are ideologues, like the neo-Nazis in Ukraine, and we're just going to give them money. And those arms go to other white nationalist groups around the world or other terrorist groups. But those weapons were showing up everywhere we didn't want them to. But those people, the merchants of death, the people that sell these things, that when we send these aid bills, whether it's to Israel or Ukraine, that money's going to get spent on arms manufacturing here, and our weapons go and they fight in every war, every which way.
It's just a gigantic money laundering circle. That's the best way to describe it.
And so going back to defend the guard, so we make the governor have to uphold our state laws.
Obey the Constitution.
Obey the Constitution. Make the federal government, federal legislature uphold their end. And I had done some little bit of research as far as why not declare war. We already talked about failing to take a formal position of war. It might be useful because you don't have to say that you supported a bad war that was unsuccessful. There was you're not held to the same international standard because it's not called a war.
Right.
Because the Nuremberg laws, because a war of aggression or invading another country is a war of aggression, that violates the Nuremberg laws. The UN, so most countries don't declare war officially because you would be held liable. Like Bush, who was not all of a sudden forgotten about for what he did, or Dick Cheney.
Yep.
Right? No longer are they war criminals.
Yeah.
No longer are they war profiteers. Well, maybe Cheney more than Bush, but they don't have to. They can potentially get away with it and not be held liable, so they're unaccountable.
Yep. They get to fly under the radar under this ambiguous pseudo state of war, but not really.
And the casualties are down. So we're doing drone warfare, we're doing special forces things, so we don't really see it because we're not really in a full-on war. Because that's when people would see it, that's when we wouldn't go for it.
Yeah, when we have people coming home by the dozens in boxes, like you hear about VBIEDs taking out squads like mine or an entire outpost or something. Like on the last day in Afghanistan, like outside the gate of Bagram, it was Kabul airport, which should have been Bagram, but we didn't pull out from there. Like things like that, or catch headlines, but it's like stuff like special operations, like it's a training accident. Like sometimes, things happen, and like that's what happens when somebody comes home in a box and it's murky on like what we're actually doing. It's not the same as like a full-fledged, we lost like a company of men in like they were ambushed, or it was like a clearing op during Fallujah or something like that. Lost a whole squad of dudes to a VBIED. It's different. It's different when you can do it with more cloak and dagger.
How do you make sense of it when you don't know why you're there?
At the time, it was just the guys next to me, right? Like you're
they
there
always
for
say,
the guys next to me, my squad mates, stuff like that. Like when stuff goes down, you're there for the guys next to you. You just react. You react to the situation as it's handed to you. And to me, it was just like the 4 years went by, and then I get out, and that's when I started to pay attention and start looking into things. Because like at the time, if you try to I don't want to second guess something when split second decisions need to be made when stuff goes down. I don't want to be questioning it in the moment, but I really would have appreciated it if somebody was looking out for me the way that like state legislators are starting to do this defend the guard thing. It would be great if like my elected representation was going to bat for me and trying to protect me and my interest, and like not put my life on the line for a war for no purpose that goes on for God knows how long, with no end in sight and no oversight.
And then for everybody who thinks so highly of Dick Cheney, in 2008 when they said that there were 13,000 stop-loss orders, that he said they knew they were getting to, they volunteered. And that's his summary of like forcing people into this for Halliburton, for KPR, for whoever else.
I've heard that same quote from a New Hampshire state senator. When I tried
you knew what you were getting into.
They said, she said to me, I was like, they know what they signed up for, and I couldn't reply. I couldn't say any, like I was so flabbergasted that somebody had that audacity to say something like that.
Because we go from a draft to an economic draft that's called a volunteer force, because it gives you the best opportunity for social mobility. And when you complain about it, you're not a full supporter of the war effort, foreign wars.
You're not patriotic enough.
You're not defending your national borders. We're not in the South China. Our border doesn't extend to the South China Sea. It doesn't extend to Ukraine. It doesn't extend to Israel. It doesn't extend to anywhere else we're having these combat zones. And we're still okay on time. It doesn't extend anywhere, and somehow we're defending ourselves, but it's national interest. And they even sometimes say, national interest. We have to defend our national interest.
Always. The mission.
The security. Yet, take a look around here. What's going on? And it was, who was Vice President under Trump last time?
Pence.
His political running this time the moment he said, I don't really, what was the heroin thing was in the news, or fentanyl thing. And he said, I don't really care about that. We have to defend democracy in Ukraine. It was like, these people don't actually care.
They're disconnected from reality.
Totally disconnected.
The things that actually matter to Americans.
Yeah. Can I read something from Mike Gravel? You know Mike Gravel? Senator, Alaska, he passed away?
No, not familiar.
2008, he was running.
Okay.
He was so Ron Paul's running in RNC. He's running DNC. He's up on the stage with Joe Biden, Obama, and Hillary Clinton. And he's asked about the war, and he's going on, these people want war with Iran, right? This is 2008. We should just quoting him, we should just plain get out. You'll hear this statement, oh my God, these soldiers will have died in vain. This is 2008, Iraq. The entire deaths of Vietnam died in vain, and they are dying in vain right this very second. You know what's worse than dying in vain? More soldiers dying in vain. And then he follows up because they ask, what would you say is the most important enemy of the United States besides Iraq? He says, we have no important enemies. Because at the time, there was going on about Syria. Syria, Libya, North Korea, Iran. They wanted to invade these other things, and because of the insurgents in Iraq and later on in Afghanistan, they couldn't quite fulfill the Iranian assault. We're going to wrap it up. Tom, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I hope this is the first of many.
I hope so too. This was really great.
What's the next step for Defend the Guard?
It's got to go to a committee hearing. We are going to retain it. We're waiting on buy-off. Some of the guys are waiting for something concrete to come from Pete Hegseth, who has endorsed the deal. So we're going to give him some time to do that, and then hopefully we'll be passing it, recommending it out of committee OTP in September. I hope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. That's the end of our first show. Thank you for tuning in.